Many musicians believe the key to ear training is recognizing intervals, either by calculating them from the tonic or between each note. But after working with over 2,500 musicians, including students from top universities and music colleges worldwide, we've seen how this approach leads most to overthinking and frustration. In this video, I'll guide you through a scientifically backed approach to quickly recognize chords by ear, improvise with confidence, and create music directly from your imagination. The strategies and exercises I'll share in this video work for anyone, no matter their level. This is the key difference from interval training, which might help a few musicians with a naturally strong ear, but for everyone else, it becomes a trap. And I'll explain exactly why. Let's listen to this. Have you felt tension in this chord? And release in this chord? If so, you've uncovered one of the most important ear training secrets: the feeling. When approached effectively, ear training is a multi-step process. The first step involves listening to a sound and paying attention to the feeling it evokes. Then the next step is forming a mental association between that feeling and the music theory concept corresponding to the sound, or also the related pattern on your instrument, or other relevant elements, if desired. The great thing is that once this association is formed, you will not only be able to recognize the sound upon hearing it, but it will also work in reverse. Thinking of the music theory concept will evoke its feeling, and that feeling will trigger the corresponding sound in your head. Similarly, visualizing the pattern on your instrument will make the notes magically appear in your mind. By the way, that's how you learn to improvise. However, this entire mechanism fails completely if you neglect feelings. Feelings are the only bridge that allows us to understand music. We should ask an important question: what generates the sensations of notes and chords? Most of you would probably say, well, intervals, the distance between the notes, that's obvious. And this is where things go wrong. Scientific research shows it's actually tonality, not intervals, that is responsible for the feelings of notes and chords. Indeed, the same intervals can evoke different emotions depending on the key. So here is the first exercise we suggest you to practice instead of focusing on intervals. It's called the drone exercise. In this exercise, we play a drone chord in the background, the tonic, the fifth above, and the tonic an octave below. What this chord does is create a clear sense of tonality. Scientific studies in music cognition have clearly shown that we don't hear music as a series of isolated intervals. Instead, we perceive music through the lens of tonality. The tonic drone chord acts like a spotlight. By highlighting the tonal center, it makes the gravitational pull of the tonic unmistakably clear, and the sensation of the key feels tangible, stronger, and more vivid than it would without the drone. As a consequence, every other note, when played on top of this drone, will suddenly feel different. Some notes will feel resolved, others will feel tense. Some will feel tense and sad, others tense but bright, and so on. The point is not to describe these sensations in words, it's to experience and internalize them. That's the first phase of the exercise. You listen to the drone, you hear a note played over it, and you pay attention to the sensation it creates. 3, 2, 5, 1. Once you start to be familiar with that feeling, the second phase starts. Now, I'm going to play some notes from within this tonality. And when each note is played, your task is to identify it as a scale degree. Before we get started, there's something essential you need to understand. We have to be very careful about the mental process we choose because it's what ultimately shapes the kind of ear you develop. If you rely on interval thinking, it won't naturally turn into intuitive recognition over time. It usually traps you in an analytical loop that never evolves into an intuitive ear. It prevents your brain from doing what's actually needed, clearly associating the sensation of each note or chord to its scale degree,
which is what allows you to recognize notes without thinking, just like you recognize colors. I'll explain exactly how and why this happens in a few minutes. For now, just remember, the way you think while practicing is crucial. And that's why, instead of focusing on intervals, we suggest this. When you hear a note and want to recognize it, sing the scale starting from that note down to the tonic, like this. Da, da, da. This is the tonic. You count the steps, and from there, you know which degree it is. 3, 2, 1. So that was the third degree. Alright, let's go ahead and try recognizing a few notes. If you can't immediately feel the scale degree from the sensation the note has against the drone, just apply the thinking strategy I just showed you. That was 6. That was 2. That was 4. One. That was 5. 7. That was 3. Before moving on to the next exercise, I want to clarify why thinking in terms of the scale, or singing it, is far better than thinking in intervals. Singing the scale, aloud or in your head, indirectly forces you to keep the tonality stable in your mind. By keeping your mind anchored in the key, this process gradually leads you to internalize the sensation of each note within the tonality, which is the foundation of true intuitive recognition. Interval thinking, on the other hand, causes your internal key to shift constantly. When you start calculating intervals, either from note to note or from a note back to the tonic, you're no longer holding the tonality steady. And if you're like most musicians at this stage, your internal perception of the key will begin to drift. Once your sense of key shifts, you can't accurately associate each scale degree with its unique sonic sensation. How can you internalize the feeling of the 5th degree if what you think is the 5th now feels like the 4th? That's why it's so important to not think in terms of intervals or distances.
The most misleading aspect of interval ear training, and the reason it became so popular, is that the way interval exercises are perceived internally is completely different for beginners and intermediates compared to musicians with an advanced ear. Let's consider a typical scenario for interval recognition exercises, such as playing a major third interval from C to E. In this scenario, and in absence of other musical stimuli, C and E are perceived as the 1st and 3rd degrees of the C major scale, fitting naturally into its gravitational field, which is stable and easy to navigate. Next, we introduce a random interval, F sharp to D sharp. These notes don't align with the C major field, creating uncertainty and disrupting the gravitational field. Since the field has been disrupted, there is no longer a clear sense of tension and resolution as there was before. The student now struggles to navigate and orient themselves within this disrupted field because it feels unfamiliar, and they cannot recognize the notes, which have assumed unfamiliar feelings as well. As the exercise continues with more random intervals, the gravitational field becomes even more blurred, unpredictable, and fuzzy, making it impossible for the student to clearly experience the feeling of these notes. This obviously prevents the student from associating the musical element to its feeling, which is the single most important step in training your ear. Let's now contrast this with an advanced student's brain. For an advanced student, the C to E interval is straightforward. When F sharp and D sharp are introduced, the advanced student's ability to quickly reset and reframe the gravitational field comes into play. A skill not yet developed by beginners and intermediates. This reframing happens involuntarily and subconsciously, preventing the gravitational field from becoming unclear. Once the gravitational field has been redefined, advanced students can easily perceive this interval as having the sensation of a minor third, like that between the first and sixth degrees of the F sharp key. A very important point I want to emphasize is that it's the position of the notes within the field that infuses the notes with their specific feeling. If you can't quickly reframe the gravitational field as an advanced student can, you will never experience that interval as resembling a minor third. It just doesn't evoke that feeling for you because you are contextualizing it within a different gravitational field.
Now, let's explore some additional exercises. Once you can recognize notes on top of the drone with a decent level of accuracy. The next step, recognizing notes by ear without the drone. I'll give you the tonic note at the beginning, and then you'll hear notes played one at a time. And your job is to recognize them based on how they feel within the key. But this time, you have to keep the key in your mind, with no help from the drone. Here's the tonic note. That was 4. Seven. That was 6. That was 3. Six. One. That was 2. Suddenly, it gets a lot more difficult, right? That's because this exercise also challenges your tonic retention, the ability to keep the tonality stable in your mind while you recognize each note. But real melodies are made of multiple notes. So now we need to train also another skill, one that most musicians completely overlook, musical memory. Because think about it, you can't recognize what you don't remember. Initially, most people can only retain 3 to 4 notes at a time, some even less than that. But real melodies are often 5, 6, 7 notes, or even more. If your memory can't hold the full phrase, you'll always feel like the melody is slipping away before you can catch it. So here's a more challenging exercise that mirrors the difficulty of recognizing real melodies. This time, you'll hear a 1-4-5-1 progression that gives you the sense of the key and then a short melodic phrase. Your job is to recognize the scale degree of each note in the melody. Let's try. I imagine that was a bit tough. Am I right? Let me know in the comments.
Developing your training skills is a gradual, step-by-step process. The problem lies in the common starting points, such as initially practicing with shorter intervals believed to be easier, and then progressing to larger ones. This approach is misleading and outright incorrect. So the real secret to your training success lies in accurately assessing your current skill level within this new paradigm of the gravitational field. Once you've determined your current level of familiarity with the field and your ability to navigate it, you can tailor a practice routine specifically designed to match it. This approach will likely revolutionize your practice routine, introducing a wide array of new exercises that prioritize skills such as pitch matching, tonic recognition and retention, scale degree and chord degree recognition, short-term musical memory, and many other foundational skills that you may not have previously practiced.
And just to show you what's possible with this method, here's what happened with Victor after applying our method for only 5 months. This was Victor's level before he started the training.
I guess I have to re-listen, and I will help myself soon with the instrument. Do, re, mi, fa, fa, ti, sa, do, re, fa, so, ti, fa, do, re, fa, ti, fa, do, re, fa. So, ti, something, mi, do, re, fa. So, fa, ti, sol, mi, la.
In the previous clip, Victor needed several listenings and the help of an instrument. But just 5 months into the training, he's now able to recognize full 8-note melodies entirely by ear, in one single listening, with no instrument at all.
So I have 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 7.
This video was just a quick introduction. If you want to take the next step, join our free ear training workshop. In the workshop, you'll assess your current skill level, learn which exercises to focus on right now, and discover the hidden mistakes that keep most musicians stuck. Interval ear training is just one of them. Click the link in the description below and register for free. And if you're not ready for the workshop yet, watch this next video where we show the exact strategy and exercises that helped one of our students go from 0 to recognizing chords by ear in just a few months. It's an eye-opening transformation, and it might be the breakthrough you need.